Well, greetings from God's Unchanging Word and this week's edition for News Nuggets and Insights. In this edition, our very first one for 2017, Friday, January 6th. We have a guest today, and we have a little different format. We have Mr. Ed Malone, who's visiting us from Anacoco, Louisiana, right on the border of Texas. Ed, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here.
Thanks.
Ed's going to come in. We're going to finish the show with Ed today. But before we get to him and talk about his congregation, I want to talk about a couple of things in the news that is very important that we all need to keep in our prayers. This month, there's three specific things that we need to focus on in our prayers. First, the Obama administration is going out. The Trump administration is going in. So it's going to be a lot of change taking place. With it, you're going to get a lot of news, a lot of things that really aren't that important. But there are three issues that I want to bring to your attention that we all need to keep in mind in our prayers as we go forward. Three specific issues. First, the next appointment to the Supreme Court judge. When Justice Scalia died this past year, it was touch and go as to who would be the next appointment. We were at a 4-4 judge rulership, and this ought to be pretty interesting with you, and you might even bring something in on this, that Ed is an attorney, by the way, and I've teased him from time to time about using him to help get our ministers out of jail if the Supreme Court judge would move more left and not allow us to speak God's holy word. I said, Ed, you may have to help us get out of jail in the future, kind of like the Monopoly game, get out of jail free card or something going forward. But this is very serious because you see, the concern is that if the judge had came in and was more left, the chances of changing the Constitution and taking away freedom of speech could have affected the ministry and your lives, whether we realize it or not. So we need to keep in mind, we don't know who the next one's going to be, but we need a Supreme Court judge who's going to keep the Supreme Court in their decisions and their ruling according to the Constitution as it was originally meant to be. Now, I'm going to bring out in the next few weeks the conversation we had with Governor Mike Huckabee, who talked about the Constitution isn't something that changes, that it's fine-tuned to a specific way of thinking that's built upon God's laws. So we need to, this is very, very important for the church. It's very important because you see, if that changes and takes away our freedom, our ability to proclaim the gospel as Jesus Christ is revealed to us will be taken away. So anyway, so that's one. The second thing we need to talk about is the appealing of the Johnson Amendment. If you remember when we did America in Decline, we began talking about the Johnson Amendment almost 1 year ago today, talking about how this amendment basically silenced the churches and silenced the pulpits and took God-fearing people out of the public life, out of the eye, and allowed secularism to come in and begin ruling our nation. So we need to talk about this because you see, if that removes the freedom that churches will feel about losing their tax-exempt status will be basically removed. And it was interesting that Donald Trump in his campaign began talking about the Johnson Amendment about 6 months after we began bringing it up a year ago. The third thing we need to talk about, which you really need to keep in your prayers, is the Resolution 2334, which was passed 1 week ago by the UN, which basically condemns Israel for their settlements in East Jerusalem and in the West Bank. I copied this piece off the internet just this morning as I was getting ready to prepare this today. So let me read what it says here. The long-anticipated coda of the Obama-Netanyahu relationship did not disappoint in its drama. With a U.S. abstention, Ambassador Samantha Power allowed the UN Security Council Resolution 2334 on the Israeli settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem to pass 14 votes to 0. This was a major diplomatic defeat for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and a major blow by President Barack Obama to the Israeli government, but it was not a surprise, nor was it unavoidable. Everything in this article is true except the very last sentence. This was avoidable had the United States done what it did in the past and chose to rescind this or to pass a vote which they could have stopped this resolution from passing. This, in essence, will condemn the Israeli settlements and East Jerusalem, which is the land that God gave them. Now, they have already admitted they will not step back to the pre-67 border. So I don't know what will come about with this, but we went into our last News Nuggets and Insight last week, at the last one of the 2016 calendar, and we spent about 30 minutes specifically talking about this event. We have video of Benjamin Netanyahu in the Hebrew tongue with the English translation on the bottom, going in about how this came about. So if you haven't seen last week's News Nuggets and Insights, you can go to the website, go to God's Unchanging Word, look at the archives and pull up last week, and you got about 30 minutes of information talking about this resolution and the dangers that God shows from the Scripture by those who curse Israel or those who bless Israel. And we went into that last week, so I don't want to go into all that again. But we need to keep those three things in our prayers. The Supreme Court, for the justice that will keep the Constitution intact, for this resolution, and of course, the Johnson Amendment. Those three issues are vital to the future of God's Word being able to bring out the warning messages in the end time. Now, we're getting a lot of new people who've been going to the website and people who are writing in. And so what I want to do now is just take a few moments before we get to Ed and just bring you update for those who are new to the website, new to the church, or new to God's Unchanging Word. We have two websites that people can visit. We have the church website that you can go online, and there's literally hundreds and hundreds of sermons on the website. You can go to the COGMI, which is the acronym for the church, or the second, which is our outreach, which is a part of this program, God's Unchanging Word, which is the gucw.org. And on that, all of the outreach that we do is promoted through God's Unchanging Word, which is sponsored through the Church of God Ministries International, and for all those who financially support and back the work that we're doing. And last year was a bumper year. We actually grew somewhere between 17 to 18% last year. So I wanted to bring that out and let everybody know. And with that, there are a lot of brand new people who are new to the understanding that God has revealed to us in this church. So that's why I'm going through this today. So one of the things we did to accomplish our commission of outreach was actually right here, the new studio, which we are in today. So I know a lot of people have seen this already. We brought some of these out at the Feast of Tabernacles, but I'm doing it here just real fast, just a couple pictures, just to show everybody what we're doing. But this is actually the new studio, is that you're looking at here. It's actually 4 studios in one, where we can move our cameras around and be able to bring guests in like we're doing today. And we're going to be using this coming year multi-cameras in various sets all at the same time. So we're looking forward to bringing some exciting new things this coming week. So this is another shot, another angle with the cameras, showing you exactly where we're sitting in the middle of that screen with that, as you're looking at that picture with the American flag behind me. Again, another angle shot. This is from the other side of the room. So it's a very beautiful set that God's allowed us to put together right here in our home base in Gretna, Louisiana. The second thing I want to bring to everyone's attention is the TV special, which will be available this month in January. And we actually started working on it several months ago and we had to stop it. And the reason was the information that we needed to bring out that we felt vital to the warning message was being brought into the political campaign. And because of that, it would make the sermon, this special look like it was a political message. And it was far from it. The message in the Constitutional Christian, as you're going to see, brings out vital information about the blessings that God bestowed on this nation, in its leaders, and how important it is for us today to stand up with the same constitutional spirit that God gave the founders and the pilgrims for this nation. It is imperative that today that the warning goes out with the same spirit that God gave them as we usher in the return of Jesus Christ in the warning. That's what this is all about. And it would have gotten lost in the campaign. So that's why we chose to back off, sit back and let it finish, let it run its course through the campaign, and then now focus on what we need to do as God's people to warn the nation. In this special, we had Governor Mike Huckabee, and when we filmed him, we actually gave him a plaque from God's Unchanging Word, thanking him for being on our program. And this man is absolutely brilliant on the Constitution, and it ties into a relationship with God who is actually uncompromising in his beliefs as far as he understands the truth to date. All right? So I'm hoping that one of these days, these guests will be able to, that God will open their minds. Now try to imagine this. If God will open their minds to understand what we understand that God's given to his church, to become a spokesman for the work.
Yes.
That would be incredible. So anyway, I pray about those things often. And we bring in, through the introduction of our programs, we introduce a lot of we bring the Sabbath day, we bring in the holy days, we bring in God's plan. And I don't know where it's going to leave, but we keep praying about it. We don't know that God isn't laying the foundation for when it's time, that these people that we've been interviewing, bringing into the truth, that God will call them, and that light will go on, and before we know it, you got an Apostle Paul out there just running rampant, just changing this world and turning it upside down. Yeah. So here's a picture where Audrey putting on the makeup, making everybody look good but me. And give you an idea of the size of the studio where we were filming. This is actually on stage in Florida, and we actually went over there, and there's all the equipment. We actually brought all that equipment with us and set it all up. Wow. And there was 4 of us who did that. It took hours and hours of work, but it paid off, and you're going to see some really, really good stuff coming up. Again, there's another shot being on stage as we were going through, cutting up a little bit while we're having a good time while we're actually doing the filming while we're over there. The second guest is David Barton, who is the founder of Wall Builders. David Barton, I tell you, when he starts talking, you might as well just go sit down, because he's got so much information. He is a historian. He's the founder of Wall Builders. He's been on Glenn Beck many, many times. He's actually, I think he's the only person that I know who actually does tours in the rotunda in the Capitol building and ties in the American heritage to God, showing that we're not a secular nation. It never was a separation of church and state, and he brings all this information out. And we filmed him. Okay, I don't have the pictures, but we actually filmed him in his studio or his library up in Dallas, where they have over 100,000 pieces of information, historical documents, original books, original manuscripts from the founders of this nation, or many of them. So it's absolutely fascinating. So we can't get all this stuff into the special. So what we'll do is we're going to actually do highlights and bring in all year long. We'll be just labeling different pieces of the information we talked about, because we actually have almost 2.5 hours of tape that we can't get it into an hour special. So just to give you an idea of how much stuff that God's blessed us with. All right, so News Nuggets and Insights was something that we decided to do right before the feast, and we were hoping that we could get one done every week, and God's blessed us. Since that time, once we got started, we've been able to run these off every single week. Now, for those who are new, if you're not online yet, what I've got here is I got a picture of God's Unchanging Word, which, by the way, we're going to be modifying God's Unchanging Word website to bring it up to date. It's going to be brighter, like we did the church website. We just haven't had time, but this year, the next couple months, you're going to see that this look change. But what I brought in here is this. In the right upper hand corner, if you go to that website, you'll see sign up for our email alerts. So every week, if you've signed up, you'll get these News Nuggets and Insights. We'll bring you a lot of information every single week. All you need to do is click on that right side. It will take you to this section right here where you see all you need to do is type in your email address. That's all you need to do. There's nothing more. You don't need to sign up with names. You don't have to commit to anything. And it will take you, and it will just put you right into and every Friday, you're going to get a News Nuggets and Insight and anything else that we're working on. Special news, it might be some major event taking place in the Middle East that we want to do a live broadcast. on some specific time in the week. You'll get an email alert to let you know what's going on. So if you're not on there, please go sign up. Get your friends to sign up. You know, let everybody you know sign up. You know, we're getting close now to almost 3,000 names on the email in a short span of time. So people have been forwarding to friends and getting them on the website. What we did last year also was we went up to Tennessee. We had a 15-year reunion with a congregation of ours that we used with another organization from before. And we did something pretty special up there. We actually, 10 years ago, as you see me here now in the picture, holding up a document, we actually worked with them through the church very inexpensively. We was able to negotiate an incredible deal. And 10 years ago, we went in and we acquired that building on behalf of that local congregation. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, is that the church in the past has always been send all your money into headquarters and we'll take care of everything else. Yeah. We actually worked as a team. We worked with the field churches. We don't get in and govern them, as we talked about last night. We don't govern the field churches, but we work together as a team. We took over the building and we was able to pay that building off. It averaged us $76.25 a week. Now they're in that building absolutely free every single week now. And so the funds we're saving now, we want to be able to work with other congregations who work together. And wouldn't it be great if every single Church of God congregation in the country had their own location? And that's one of the goals that we've been working toward. This is our first one, took us 10 years, it's done. There's the original members when we was working with them who are still there, who haven't passed away or had any problems. Went up there, we shared a toast and champagne with them. There's the members who were up there today. I thought I had more pictures. I took a bunch out so not to spend a lot of time into this. Now, another thing we did, we just got finished. You can go online or write in this new series called Today If You Hear His Voice. It's 5 pieces, 5 parts, 5 hours of information very specifically about this series, Today If You Hear His Voice. And so we've been developing series. I went online, so if you go to the church website and you go online and you look at all the information, you hit one of them drop boxes and see all the sermons that are available. Jeff, my brother, and Bob Bourne, who's up in North Carolina, has put together a page, they call it the series page. And they have like 9 or 10 or 8 or 9 series that you can click on that page. So I went on there just to look at it the other day. And in those few series, there's over 50 hours of information in just that one page and those different series. Just to give you an idea how God's blessed us with information to be able to put out there for the people to be able to download and to get absolutely free. Over 50 hours in those series. So, and we're going to be adding more to them this year. Preparing for growth. Now, as we're going to be ready to wrap this up, and we're going to finish this off with Ed. A couple of things we need to work on for this coming year is our growth this past year was up somewhere between 16 to 18%, depending on how it finishes up over the next few days as we come close to the end. As of today, we're up just over 17% over last year. We're reaching new potential members. You know what our problem was this past year? People actually have called in wanting to say, is there a church in my area? And we don't have churches in those areas. The other problem, people were saying that they've been in the church years and years ago who had stepped away, that God has inspired them to come back in, have been viewing all these sermons and information, and God has rekindled that love, of that first love again for the truth, and they want to get baptized. And we don't have anybody in the area to send to them to baptize. So we need your prayers. We want to work with as many people as we can work with and trying to help establish new congregations and develop new leadership. So you're going to see these areas is going to take a lot of our focus this year to be able to help the new people that God's been bringing to the website and to the church. You know, that's critical that we take care of those that God has been blessing. And we're doing it all through the outreach with God's Unchanging Word and teaming up with other congregations and other churches who want to work together as a body under Jesus Christ. Our guest speaker today, Ed Malone, our host from Anacocha. He actually delivered the sermon, powerful sermon, It was great. So everybody really enjoyed that. It'll be online in the near future. We'll probably mail that out to everybody. So Ed's here. What I did, and then we're going to get to a few pictures, and he's going to bring us up to date on what's going over there, give us some addresses and the information. We'll put it on the website. We'll add all that information so if anybody's in the area. So if you're looking to go to Anacoca, people say, where in the world is Anacoca? And a lot of people may not know. So on this map, right behind you, Ed, you got, we show where that is. So I'm going to give you some bearing points. There's Shreveport. You'll see it on the screen. There's Lake Charles. And there's New Orleans. So they're way over there toward Texas. And if you're coming from Texas, if you're seeing this in Texas, and you want to visit their area, give you an idea down there by Beaumont, close to Houston. And that's where they're at. All right, that's where they're at. So let's see what I got here. We put this all together at the last minute. So Ed, I've talked enough. Let's see if we can get you in here now to talk a little bit about what we're looking at. We just threw a few pictures in. This was all last minute. It was right before we started filming, so I'm not even sure what we have here. So Ed, tell us about Anacoca. Tell us about the congregation, how you got involved, what's going on.
Well, I call the Church of God Anacoca the Church of God in no man's land. A Church of God in no man's land. In fact, I wrote an article, and that's what it was called, A Church of God in no man's land, because it fulfills an institutional void. It's for people who live, let's say, in East Texas or Western Louisiana, they can't get up to Big Sandy and Tyler, where there's really a big cluster of churches, can't get to Houston or Shreveport or all the way over here to New Orleans. That church is in a good location. It fills a void, because right now I live in San Augustine, Texas, and I could go up to Tyler or down to Houston, but this place is about 70 miles from me. And so if anyone lives in that area, and which was called no man's land, it was the border between, at one time, Spanish Texas and French Louisiana. And so it's in that area, and it really serves a good purpose. For people.
Well, that's great. So how many people on average? You know, you get highs and lows, but how many average you have there?
10 adults, 5 to 7 children.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then on holy days, and of course, if you have potluck, you probably go up.
Well, we actually have a potluck every week.
Oh, do you really?
Every Sabbath.
Oh, they actually have their own building over there, and that's what we want to show. So is this, what are we looking at? Is this?
Yes, that's the building. Before I began attending, and I guess maybe years ago, maybe 10 years ago, the Church of God Anacoca met in various spots around the city. But then, you know, as will happen sometimes with the Church of God, you will run into opposition. At one time, they met at the village hall. The mayor gave some goodwill to the church, but then the citizens of the town told the mayor, no, we want the church out of there. So after all of those type of problems, one of the members, Helen Ross Smith, said, I have an extra house, because her children built her a bigger house. She said, my extra house I will donate to the church. I'll allow the church to use. And so that's where the church meets.
See, I've got there she is. I have a picture of her there.
And a very hospitable lady. In fact, if someone attends that congregation for the very first time, a first-time visitor, she has a special song that she sings for them. And so actually, that's actually a picture of her singing there.
So what he's actually doing today is he's over here as a guest speaker, and the co-pastor for this congregation here in New Orleans, Mr. Clayton Evans, which a lot of people might know from the Feast of Tabernacle, has actually been going to visit them. So actually what we're doing along the I-10 corridor right now is we're beginning to build a speaker exchange for the congregations that go all the way from Anacoca to New Orleans to Mobile, Pensacola, over into past Tallahassee into Jacksonville, Florida, so that they have the speakers that God has blessed with a corridor of congregations across the whole I-10 corridor from Texas to the coast. So we're going to be working on that this year to try to get more and more speakers to be able to go back and visit other congregations and see what we can do to build the camaraderie amongst the churches.
Yes.
So that's actually what we're doing now, and part of the reason that Ed is here. All right, so this picture here we have is one of the rooms. This is where you meet in the church?
Yes. Well, when the house was converted to a church, this was before I came, but they did a very good job in preserving space. There's one room dedicated for a children's study, and that's where the children have their Sabbath school every Sabbath. There's another room. There was one bedroom that was retained and kept intact as a bedroom. And whoever thought of that, that was a brilliant idea because...
I think we got a picture of that somewhere.
Yes.
So, there you go.
Yes, because any person traveling from afar or any guest speaker has a room to sleep in Friday night or maybe even the night after the Sabbath. Those are guest quarters.
So what Ed was telling me that if a guest speaker comes in early enough on Friday, quite often they will do Bible studies on Friday night, and then have services
Correct.
the next day, have a potluck, and send him home fat, dumb, and happy.
Yeah. So that's one of the good things about the Church of God Anacoco. It may be small in attendance, but guest speakers have come through, which is good. Dave Haver has been there. Charles Gross, Wynn Skelton, Clayton Evans. They're still talking about him. Good, all good. They enjoyed those 2 visits.
That's great.
And so that's a good thing.
So a lot of people find
Yeah.
their way to no man's land.
Yes.
We're hoping that we get this on the website, there'll be a lot more people who might be in the area, maybe can start attending them more regular.
Yeah.
Now, you had something happen just the other week, which was kind of remarkable. So take a moment and tell us about what we're looking at in this picture.
And yes, the congregation is flexible. Not flexible in the sense that someone can come in and handle snakes and do silly things, but flexible in the sense of not rigid. And so on one particular Sabbath, there was a procession for a soldier, a Korean War veteran from that little town of Anacoco, population 800. And so his body was recently discovered. So they presumed him dead, but his body had been discovered after 60 years. And so they had a procession for him in Anacoco. And it took place actually during services. And I was making announcements, such and such will happen here and there. And the procession started, and then the children just started running outside the door to see it. And rather than, say, like an old school person might say, sit down, children, it's not watermelon time. Rather than do that, we decided to go out and watch the procession. But then the procession stopped, and there was a little gap in time, so we decided to go back in, and I altered my sermon, and I gave something short and incorporated some scripture in it. And I stated that just as this soldier was honored upon his death, the saints of Christ are honored and given a crown of life. I also mentioned that precious in the sight of God is the death of his saints. So I incorporated scripture into it so that there would be a lesson, because it's still the Sabbath. But then we went out and watched the procession. You have children 8, 9, 7 years old from a little old town like Anacoco who will probably never see anything like that again. And so you have some mercy and allow that. It's not as if they're lifting steel and getting paid for it. That would obviously be defiling the Sabbath, but to watch something, to incorporate some scripture into it and get a lesson out of it was something that we did, and I'm happy that it turned out that way.
Well, that's great. Now, he's also got some video, which unfortunately I couldn't bring to a live. We have a live audience today, by the way, for the first time. New Year, first program, live audience too. But we're hoping that we can incorporate that video, that when our audience sees this online, we'll have the live video of this procession going by. So he's actually got that too, and we'll try to bring that to you. bit later. Well, that's it. That's what we have for God's Unchanging Word for this week. We're going to try to focus as much as we can, bringing in more speakers to New Orleans and focus on their churches, their congregations, to see what we can do to help them churches to grow also, like God's been blessing us. So Ed, thank you again for coming to New Orleans. We'll hope to see you back again here real soon. And we'll see all of you all next week for the next News Nuggets and Insights for God's Unchanging Word. Until then, God bless you and be real careful out there.